I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Brian Wilson.
And we'll start there with Senator Tom Coburn, Republican from Oklahoma. Senator, we're going to talk about some other stuff, but I want to start with the shutdown. What's the end game? Where are we today?
Oh, I don't know if you know where we are today. What has to happen on any conflict is you have to have people willing to sit down and compromise and give people ability, give the president ability to save some face, give the Republicans in Congress ability to save some face, and you can get it solved. But the first thing you got to do is get them talking.
Well, so you would encourage that. Is there? I hear some talk that the administration might be offering a little bit of an olive branch to Republicans in the form of a short-term debt limit agreement. Is that the way that you let Republicans save face? Does that get things started?
Brian, I don't know. Those decisions will be made in the House in terms of how they start, because one of the things Harry Reid got wrong is saying that the House doesn't get to pick and choose. By the Constitution, the House does get to pick and choose what we fund. That's their constitutional role. And so somewhere there's a mix, and as the pressure builds on members of Congress to get it solved, we'll get a solution, and probably not before the 17th. Before the artificial date that Jack Lew has given us, which is, I'm sure, is movable. But I'd make this one point with you. There is no such thing as a debt ceiling in the United States, because it always gets raised, and we never solve the problems which are creating the debt. We need to take the scissors out, cut up the credit card, make the hard choices that everybody ought to have to share in, reform the entitlement programs, and quit having to borrow money.
Yeah. Our guest is U.S. Senator Tom Coburn, Republican from Oklahoma, and one of the things that Congress over the last few decades have chosen to fund is the disability program through the Social Security Administration. And your report that you released yesterday was startling. The amount of waste, fraud, and abuse, outright fraud, outright lying. I think that most conservatives, we want to help the helpless, but we don't want to be taken advantage of. And there are people robbing the government blind. Senator Coburn, tell us about it.
Well, I think, first of all, this is not about not taking care of those people who are truly disabled. And the ironic thing about where the Social Security disability system is now, with fully a third of the people who are getting checks probably not disabled, is the very people who are disabled when this trust fund runs out of money, which is about 18 months to 2 years, is they're going to take a cut. And they're the ones that can't work in the underground economy, in the black economy, and work for cash. So what we saw and what the report shows and what the hearings yesterday were very revealing was both the incompetency, the fraud, the law breaking, and the just downright not care about what happens, just meet a quota and don't do what's right. Attitude at Social Security in terms of the leadership from that organization.
I saw the piece on 60 Minutes, and that was quite impressive. It made me extremely angry. Talk about the very appropriately named attorney in Kentucky by the name of Eric Conn.
Yeah. Well, he refused to testify yesterday. He took the Fifth Amendment, which is his right. But there's no question that there was significant violations of law. That's my opinion. I'm not a lawyer. But where all of his cases ended up getting funneled mainly in front of one judge who approved all of his cases.
Every single case that he brought, and he brought a bunch of them, was just rubber stamped, basically.
Yeah, it was what was called an on-the-record determination, and the judge would call to his office and say, here's what I need a doctor to tell me to get this approved, and then Eric Conn would have the doctor do that.
Senator Coburn, you were elected in '94, and right after that there was a bipartisan effort to reform welfare. Please tell me that you've got friends on the other side of the aisle, a bipartisan report to reform the disability system in light of this report?
Well, I was very pleased yesterday. Several of my colleagues on our committee were there, representing both Republicans and Democrats, and they did a great job of grilling everybody. And I think they now see the problem. I've been talking about this this is my third year talking about it, and our second hearing on it. And so my hope is now that we've raised awareness that we'll see the reforms that are necessary. Here's one of the key reforms. is when, first of all, we have lawyers making way too much money off the disability system,
Yes.
which induces them to try to get people who are not disabled.
They have an incentive. They have an
Yeah, that's
incentive
right.
to lie.
That's right, and that's normal human behavior. That doesn't make them bad people. They're responding to an incentive that we've put up. But what we have to have is, remember, somebody who goes in before an ALJ, an administrative law judge, has already, by the professionals at Social Security, been denied twice. In other words, you do not meet the definition of disabled to collect a check. Mm-hmm. And what happens is you go into before an ALJ, those professionals who made that decision aren't there. So you don't hear their side of the story. All you hear is the claimant's side of the story. Uh-huh. And if the judge doesn't do a good job of reading the records, and sometimes these are 1,000 pages long, if they don't actually work hard to find the truth, then we're going to default by giving people disability when they're not truly disabled. I'd make one other point about that.
All right.
When you put somebody on disability who's not truly disabled, what you're really doing is handicapping their future, because you're creating dependency on their part,
yes,
which will limit their own future.
Well, back in Oklahoma, I would imagine that the people, when they hear about this, are outraged. Do you find that there is this abuse in the state of Oklahoma?
Oh, yes. The first report we did, we looked at cases from Oklahoma City. We looked at three different cities throughout the country, the first report we did, and we saw the same problem with judges approving way too high of a percentage. About 25% of the cases we looked at didn't meet anywhere close to the criterion of being disabled.
Wow.
Now, Social Security admits that 22% of the cases are decided inappropriately.
Wow, that's a huge number that they even admit to. Imagine
and they
how many
admit
they
that.
don't.
Right.
Senator Coburn, real fast, you're from Oklahoma, so we take it for granted that you don't know really much about anything about pro football. I guess college football, but not. But there's this movement to change the name of the Washington team, the Redskins, and my information is that the name Oklahoma, the name of your state, Senator, is from the Choctaw Indian words meaning red people. Yeah. So, can you chime in on this? I mean, if they forced Dan Snyder to change the name of the Redskins, shouldn't you have to change the name of your state?
Well.
I mean, your state, based on this new definition, the name of your state is a racial slur.
This is a free country. And as far as I know, other than the tax-free status of pro football teams through the NFL, they ought to be able to name their teams whatever they want.
All right.
And the definition of that ought to be their fan base.
So you do not accept the fact that the name Oklahoma, meaning red people, is a racial slur? Oklahoma, you're okay with that name?
I'm okay.
Good to know.
Oklahoma. Okay. Senator Tom Coburn, thank you so much for joining us.
Okay.